about the pods and deployment in Kubernetes. So pods basically they are running inside, means everything in the Kubernetes it's running inside a pod. And in real world production environment means like talking about our big containers applications in Kubernetes, where we will have to deploy the app and automatically heal or scale the applications. So there the pod is used. So basically pod is the smallest unit in where it deployed in Kubernetes, and it can have, means inside the pod we can have one or more containers, as you can see in the diagram. And in this diagram we have two container, which is one and container one and container two, which is enwrapped with a port 8080 and 1717. So these are on a local host and it's connected by a file system, and the pod which is managing the public IP of the address, and in that container we have an application. So this is the basic diagram of pods. And now what are the key traits where we have to understand. So where pods are short-lived and disposable, means if any one of the pod crashes it won't restart itself unless managed by something by higher level. So we have to manage the deployment of pods by very carefully, and it is as, and it's since they are placed on container, means so inside that we have to stick to the node when they are scheduled on. Node means a virtual machine, you can say guys, any virtual machine, Linux machine we have are using. So in that Linux machines, we would be managing our pods. Now, how about the deployment part? So, guys, deployment is a manager for your pods. Means it ensures that where the right number of like running and how we have replaced them, when we have to fail, if any one of the pods fail, then how we have to update the app with the zero downtime. Now, in the deployment, what we'll get an automated management of pod replicas. So replicas basically they are a replica sets we will discuss in our upcoming videos in detail, but they are management of pod replicas, means in containers we will manage the deployment of pods. You can understand by this diagram we have a pod which is at the outer skirts, and then we have a container, then we have an application. So then we have the version control for our app, means we have to update it app. So when then we have to check our YAML file, which is the desired state we will check, and want the Kubernetes to mention it, explain it. So what are the relationship between the pods and deployment? So in the pods, like we can see the pod as a busy cafe where we have a coffee machine, and it where people come to drink the coffee, and the eventually the coffee sometimes like eventually the it wears out or breaks up, so any fixes we have to do. So we can consider the deployment as a cafe manager, where he would be responsible for managing the virtual machine, let's say our coffee machine. So coffee machine will be running state, and this deployment manager will be responsible, or the cafe manager will be responsible, means they have a sufficient coffee running in the machine, and if anyone breaks he can replace it, or it can, if the demand increases, suppose on a any special occasion of the company or any of the offices we have. So if any kind of like special occasion is there where multiple coffees are needed, then in that case it can, the deployment manager or the cafe manager in that case will bring more coffee. Now in that case also, if the machine we have to update the machine model, suppose any new upgrade is needs to be, so we have to roll them gradually and safely. Now while pod we can say it's a worker node, and deployment manager who is managing the workflow, which is the worker nodes it would be managing. Okay, so it has to be responsibility to ensure the consistency, scalability, and resiliency over the time. Means this replica set should not get break. This while the deployment specifications, like if a deployment manager is updating the coffee machine, okay, suppose certain breaks or fixes it has to be done, or needs to be upgraded. So in that case the replica set will come into picture. It will decide number of pods which is required. If any one pod dies, then replica set will on the replacement. Means we have to, in that case, replace the coffee machine. So in that case, the same case, when to use and what, that is basically very managed part in Kubernetes. You have to use the pods directly, or when you to kick off or use those resources. So that we will see in our upcoming videos, more on the container part and the daemon sets. Thank you for watching.